Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the WTF1 podcast. My waving minions are back at it once again, and we are going to be talking about the F1 2022 driver changes and just some news, just some chat. We're in the middle of I say middle, two-thirds of the way through a triple header. There you go, maths. And we thought we'd talk about all the news that's been going on because teams just decide to release all of their news at once. I don't know why that is. Maybe we'll discuss that. But Tommy, the WTF1 founder, how are you feeling about what's been going on in the last few weeks?
Yeah, it's been pretty chaotic. Obviously, people know that the Bottas news got announced during our podcast, but we didn't really dive into it too much. And then obviously that was the first piece of the puzzle. Well, I guess Kimi actually technically was the first piece of the puzzle. And everything has kind of gone on from there. And it's been pretty chaotic.
It has indeed. And Katie, hello.
Yeah, hello.
Welcome once again. I bet you've been a busy person the last few days with all the articles and news and whatnot.
It's been an intense couple of days. I mean, we've had the whole season of people saying, when are we going to know announcements? When's this going to happen? When are you going to do that? And then they've gone, okay, right, here we go. And then just like new story. So it's kind of similar to the week we had in between Bahrain and Sakir last year, where like everything just happened in 1 week at the end of the season. This is that week this season. It's been intense.
So myself and Tommy have missed out on sleep because we've been doing a very exciting little road trip, haven't we, Tommy, in a DHL van? Which becomes.
Can you tell I've been to Zandvoort?
No. Of course, you put it front and centre in your shot as well.
Had to be done.
Surprised you're not wearing it, to be honest.
No, I was going to. It's tempting.
Give us a little 12.
Do it. Like Danny Rick 12 that you saw. Yeah.
Team WTF1 exclusive at the end.
Absolutely. Before we dive into it, it's probably worth mentioning I am actually holding my microphone. It's not really windy where I am. You might be able to see it on the screen or not. But I've just moved, as you can see. So it's a bit echoey, bit run and gun because I can't find the bottom of my mic stand. But hey, if I just randomly throw my microphone, it's because my arm has literally stopped working. So fingers crossed it won't, but I might have to change over a few times. But we're here. The three of us are here. Me and you, Tommy, we're slightly delirious still. Did you have a good night's sleep last night?
I did. I 8 o'clock I went to bed and just literally was out like a light.
Absolutely love it. Right, let's dive into it then. So let's talk about George to Mercedes, shall we? Of course, we kind of knew that was coming after Bottas was announced to Alfa, which will be another one obviously we speak about. But the big one is, of course, George going up against Lewis Hamilton next year at Mercedes when they're fighting for 15th and 16th on the grid whilst Williams is winning the championship. We kind of went back and forward throughout the season. Well, I did at least. I think you guys were the same, kind of thinking, will they just keep Bottas, be safe? Will they go for George? It's finally been announced we can all just retire now, can't we?
Chill out. I don't have to worry about waking up at 6 a.m. every day and thinking that Mercedes are going to share this announcement, which I was honestly the night before. So a little look into behind the scenes of this kind of stuff. So I had a draft article ready to go of George to Mercedes. And the night before I had a nightmare. I woke up like 3 a.m, like sweating, like, oh my God, I've hit publish on the article and I've shared it on the socials. Oh my God, what have I done? It didn't happen, but like, that's how much it was just on my brain the whole time, is that I was starting to have blooming nightmares about this announcement.
Is that why we accidentally posted an article a few weeks beforehand saying that George Russell had gone to Mercedes? Because you did it in your sleep. It's like a sleep.
I didn't do it that one. I had too many tabs open that time and was like, oh, I just clicked publish on that one, then realised I'd accidentally shared a Russell to Mercedes article.
You could just say you predicted the future, to be honest. So
I'm just going to say that actually George and I were like best mates and he told me this ages ago. So there you go. It didn't happen, but yeah, I'm just glad these announcements are sort of done and out the way now, and we can focus in on Monza this weekend and the rest of the season. But I'm sure there will be the inevitable questions of how do you think so-and-so is going to do against this driver? And there's still one more seat to go as well, the Alfa Romeo seat alongside Bottas. So it's not over yet, but soon maybe.
I'm just looking at the chat and we had a comment from Alice saying Frank the psychic dog, because he also predicted the George move in one of these podcasts. And yes, I will mention that Michael saying, what did Tommy say before? Merck are never going to have Lewis and George in the same team. I did say that and I was convinced. And I think it was more down to just Bottas's performances, there's so many moments where I was like, surely, they're going to want to keep him. And then even I kind of almost thought in Zandvoort, like, this is why Bottas is the perfect driver, that he's up there enough, but not going to challenge. But then even still, he wasn't quite there enough to be able to challenge in that second pit stop. And I think that's what Mercedes will probably think. It's worth the risk of maybe a few fireworks at the start, just to have a quicker driver, in theory, in there.
Good point, Tommy. I like good backtracking. Enjoyed that.
I was wrong.
Let's dive into the questions. We're always wrong on this podcast, but that's the beauty of us being fans and making content for all of you. At Jack and 03401119. I feel like people just make these accounts now just to annoy me. Can Mercedes realistically expect Russell to be as compliant as Bottas was if they consistently give him team orders from week 1 in 2022 to back off fastest laps, not defend, etc.? Will Russell accept the support role as readily in order to hand Hamilton another drivers' championship? I don't think Mercedes are going to enforce that straight away. I think that's a conversation they'll have pre-season. That'll be something that they say, right, George, we've given you the C. Let's not be silly now. It's a quick car. There won't be a case of you have to literally just fall off the track every time Lewis is behind you. So I don't think it's going to be like that, especially when Mercedes don't really know. Obviously, they have a lot of data of Russell testing the car, but they don't exactly know how Russell will compete against Hamilton when it comes to round 1. If he's quicker than Hamilton, it won't make any sense for Russell to, fall back. Obviously, I don't particularly think that's going to happen. But they're just going to have to be quite fluid with what they say and just kind of react to the first few rounds and then see how it goes, to be honest, because obviously George will be happy to, I'm sure, help where he can when it's necessary. But round 1, I just don't see that being straight away, maybe midway through the season.
Yeah, I think Russell's probably going to go into Mercedes, and I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to go in and ruffle feathers straight away. Like, he's got a good relationship with Toto and the Mercedes team there. He's been part of their junior program for several years now. And before he was in F1, he was like shadowing Toto and stuff in the garage over race weekend. So he's familiar with the guys and girls that work there. But yeah, I'm sure wins will inevitably come next year if the car is competitive. I don't think, like you say, it's going to be a case of, he has to drop off and let Lewis through every time. I mean, looking at the 2017 season when Valtteri Bottas got that promotion to Mercedes, he got a win in the 4th race of the year. So I think it will happen. But George has now just got to make that decision of like, how is he going to approach this whole scenario? Is he going to go in as the nice guy and maybe change his attitude as the season progresses? Or is he just going to settle for that number 2 driver, get all the experience he can, learn from Lewis Hamilton? Because that's going to be something that I know he was a teammate to Kubica before. Obviously, Latifi is also fairly new to the whole F1 thing, but learning against a 7-time world champion is going to be absolutely invaluable for him. And maybe he just puts in the good results, does the work, and then waits for Lewis to retire, which could be after this current contract finishes, and then just take that number 1 role in the team rather than risk going in, causing loads of fireworks, loads of drama and that kind of stuff. And then Mercedes turn around and go, actually, do you know what? You were a bit too hot-headed and we don't really want you after all of this. See you later.
I think that'll be part of it, won't it? And it's probably something that I wouldn't be surprised if has been spoken. I think we're all in agreement that he's not going to be there in the first race and say he's, like you say, Bottas in 2017, they weren't in the 4th race. They let him win. They weren't saying, get out the way and let Hamilton through. And then, later in the season, Hamilton's ahead. Then those team orders start coming into play. I don't think he's going there to be a number 2 driver, but I'm also adamant that he's not going to be the kind of person, he's going to appreciate the opportunity and play it in the perfect way of not being too aggressive and, crazy, because that's not what Mercedes need. Example, I don't feel like if George is ahead, they're going to let him, say, get out of the way for Hamilton. But say Hamilton's leading and George is maybe fast approaching near the end of the race, and the team say hold position because we just want to secure maximum points, and probably thinking, don't want you guys to race each other because we don't want another Rosberg situation. I feel like George would agree to that if, especially like early in the championship when he's there alongside Lewis and he's just getting you into that team and stuff. So I feel like he will be sensible with it, and it might take him a bit of time to get up there, but I don't think he's going to be a flat out number 2. I think the only reason not the only reason, but Bottas being a number 2 driver at Mercedes has just been because of his results, really. Like you think about it, it's because they know, he had a couple of chances to do it when they were the only team, but now it's Hamilton and a lot closer with Verstappen. Of course, they're going to use him as a number 2 because they know that he can't challenge Verstappen, whereas Hamilton can, so they need him. So I think Mercedes will play it fair.
Play it fair. We kind of played it down. Yeah, George will, do as is told. But on the flip side, you don't know what happens to a person when they're leading a race, or when they're fighting for a win.
Turn 1.
I don't think he's going to do a Vettel Multi 21, 100%. I don't think he would be as, rebellious as that. But, this is an enormous opportunity for George Russell to go down in the history books as beating the greatest of all time next year. If he, and obviously, I think a lot of people, including myself, would write him off if it was similar regulations to last year. But we are going into a very much clean slate next year. Doesn't really matter how much time Lewis has been in the team, just because George has been a junior driver for many years as well. So he knows how that team works. And that's the whole reason he's been a junior driver, is because eventually they wanted to give him the top seat. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think it will be the sensible approach for George, but you never know if he starts winning the championship in the first few rounds.
Could be really spicy. I think it is the most exciting driver move probably since Sebastian Vettel left Red Bull, because it is what the fans, we've said it so many times on this podcast, every time people are saying, why, they need to get rid of Bottas and put someone else in, and we're like, Mercedes don't have an obligation to make it exciting and put someone really exciting in the car. But my word, have they put someone really exciting in their car alongside a driver that, you've also got the potential that even, say George isn't beating Hamilton on pace, or even in his second year, he's, up to speed and doing a Charles Leclerc, what Charles did to Vettel, for example. Or if Hamilton's had some bad luck and is maybe down in the title. I've never seen that situation where, like Hamilton would have to help a teammate win the championship. It would be so bizarre.
Be over his dead body.
It would be
not let that happen.
Exactly. So there's so much potential spice with this lineup. I cannot wait already.
Bring it on. And I think just one more point on that was that Mercedes really had to sign George Russell this for next year. Otherwise, they run the risk of him just being like, well, clearly I'm not getting the opportunity that you guys promised me, if they continue to go with Bottas, who is underperforming, you have to say. So, it's Mercedes have had to go with it. I think it's probably the right decision in terms of keeping someone that could be a Lewis Hamilton in terms of pace. We don't know, though. All we've seen is Russell versus Latifi. So let's not get ahead of ourselves as to how good or bad that Williams is. We haven't really seen him go up against someone who's an experienced competitor. So who knows? Very exciting. I love it. Next question, at OTBEP HUCB. Wouldn't George be under enormous pressure, media hype, high expectations next year, which might affect his performance? Last 2 years, he was relaxed, as no one really expected anything from Williams. Now, this is a really good question because, well, yes, he will be under a lot of pressure. And he's not exactly the perfect, well-rounded driver yet. We've seen quite a few mistakes from George, crashing under the safety car in Monza, as much as, his tyres were cold, whatever. And it was sad to see. It was a huge mistake. He also made a mistake, I think, in Austria, where he ran wide out of a points-paying position. And he is prone to a mistake. And I think that will probably elevate a bit more going into next year, where he has to be, pinpoint perfection next year to beat Lewis Hamilton. So that I think could overspill a few times. I expect maybe a few crashes in the first sort of few races where he's overdriving the car. Of course, we saw that only in Zandvoort where he crashed in qualifying as well, overdriving the Williams. So yeah, I think that we could see a few mistakes from George. That'll allow Lewis to probably, take over, but continue in the number one role, in my opinion. So yeah, we might see some mistakes from George.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very different ball game to be at the front. I know he's had that opportunity so he can say, yes, when the most pressure he's ever had is probably in that Mercedes seat when he had essentially one opportunity to prove himself, and he did, and he would have won the race. But it's very different to do that for 21, 22 races a season. Charles Leclerc, in my opinion, is one of the top tier drivers on the grid. And he came into 2019 in that car, starting to be really good. And they had an amazing car that season. And even Charles Leclerc is, an amazing driver and was so good in all the junior categories and was incredible in a Sauber and really consistent. Binned it in quite a few races because the pressure is so different. I'm not saying George has had an easy road, but him finishing 11th in a Williams and surprising everyone is so different to being in a car where if you don't win, that's not the best result. Like win minimum every single race. And that is such different pressure to being like, oh, well, if I get a point, it's incredible. And like you say, we saw that with Leclerc, had a few, couple of crashes, but then also his amazing performances, at Monza and Spa and stuff. And it took him a while to get involved. So I could see something very similar happening with George, where maybe, has a few incidents early in the season, but then starts to learn more and bring that consistency, which is probably the hardest thing about winning a championship and doing it, is having that level. That's why Hamilton's so good, despite people thinking, it's just the car, but it's not. When you're in a car where you have to, win every single race, it's not as easy as just win every race. It's fine. It's a lot harder than that.
I think Leclerc's actually a great example. We've seen other drivers on the grid that maybe have been promoted, like looking at Red Bull, for example, the likes of Gasly and Albon, like they had really promising careers, get promoted. Some might say too soon. I'm not saying that George is being promoted too soon, but they have struggled at that top team, and that affects them in their confidence. And, Gasly has managed to sort of get that confidence back in going to AlphaTauri and having a team that's like almost solely built around him rather than being second to Max Verstappen. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how he even like his behavior changes and stuff like that, because looking at Bottas obviously going from Williams to Mercedes, I saw something, I think it was on TikTok the other day, of like how much Bottas is. I know, but I think somebody done like an edit of, and sorry if I don't know their username or anything, but like how Bottas was at Williams and how he's not necessarily Mercedes have molded him into this PR machine, but just like his characteristics and stuff like that, he's become a lot more serious having joined Mercedes, and that is probably a lot to do with the pressure that's been there and how he is representing what was the best team on the grid, and with that is a lot of pressure, having to make sure that you're doing well for the team both on and off the track. So it's going to be interesting to see how Russell gets on, but I feel like this is my famous last words, and I hope I haven't just jinxed George Russell's entire F1 career, but he seems like the kind of driver that we've seen so far who will have little hiccups here and there, but generally will be a solid, reliable pair of hands at that Mercedes.
Lovely little segue as well, as we're about to talk about Bottas. But before we do, I think George will be that kind of driver that's able to develop a car, because one thing that I noticed when I've spoken to him or I've interviewed him is how unbelievably detailed he is in describing things. He could literally describe to you a slice of toast for half an hour and you'd be interested till the very last second, because he would literally just dissect everything. And it's so eloquent in the way he speaks as well. And it's not something you tend to see that much I'm not saying that everyone else can't speak, but it's kind of just that extra level, in my opinion. But we'll see. We're going to find out from next year, especially, developing a brand new car and brand new regulations. There's going to need to be a lot that goes into that. But I mean, Lewis, with all the experience, and George being this rapid young kid, is it's a recipe that could dominate the championship, or it could be spicy, as we've said. Anyway, yes, Bottas to Alfa. Of course, that was announced before. George to Mercedes, that Mercedes, of course, don't look like the bad people here by sacking Bottas. So instead, it's a new chapter in Bottas's career. I'm not sure if this will be a good chapter or not, but at World City Transit asks, why did Bottas move to Alfa Romeo and not Williams? Potentially more money is at Alfa Romeo. Maybe he also sees there's a slight more potential there than at Williams, because obviously he has been at Williams previously. Maybe he just wants a bit of a change as well, from the fact that, as I say, he started at Williams and he's been there, done that almost. So perhaps he also sees an opportunity to be flat out number one at Alfa Romeo, and he can kind of build the team around him. So there's lots of reasons, I think, why Bottas obviously didn't have that many choices available to him. But he's still on the grid. I think he'll enjoy it more, even if he's not challenging for wins. I think he will enjoy having that, that say in the team that maybe he hasn't had so much at Mercedes.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised when the Bottas to Alfa rumours started, because to me, going to somewhere like Williams seems like the right decision to make, remaining within that Mercedes bubble and all that kind of thing. But like you say, it could be a case of money. It could be a case that Fred Vasseur said, like, here's our PowerPoint, here's our 5-year plan, and this is what we're going to do. And he was just taken by it and thought, actually, maybe I do need a clean slate and I need to change my surroundings, change the people that I'm working with, and have a different challenge. And yeah, he decided upon Alfa Romeo. But I'm interested to see how they're getting on. Obviously, they've had Kimi and Gio there for such a long time that I'm looking forward to seeing how a different lineup is going to change how the car is, and see if it performs any better in these new regulations. But yeah, I think that's probably my thoughts on that.
Sorry, Casey, I was just trying to find my charger. I was listening to you.
That's all right, mate.
I just said, beep, 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 and I was like, uh-oh. Sorry, carry on.
That's like, cool.
Yeah, but Bottas, for me, I feel like not ego involved, but in terms of like the narrative of him going Williams, Mercedes, back to Williams, even if Williams are all right, it looks better that he's kind of gone, I'm going to a new team and building it around me. And because let's be honest, we'll go into this later about the second Alpha seat, but it's going to be someone inexperienced that's going to be there. So essentially, yeah, he's going into that team as a number one driver. And there was rumors saying that Williams wanted Bottas as their first choice, which I'm not surprised. Like, seems like a good choice for him to go back there. But yeah, I do wonder if in his head he's thinking, well, like, I've done the Williams thing. I don't want to get to Mercedes and then go back to the team that I started in. And while they are on an upward spiral, they're still one of the bottom teams. So yeah, it could be, it's an interesting move. And there's talk that he could be there for quite a long time. But it's going to be one of those things where he could be like good once he gets his confidence back, because I think it's mad how much a confidence seems to, I don't know if it's just more recently, but like we've noticed it, but drivers like mental state and stuff seems to affect it so much. You saw Albon and Gasly couldn't handle it in Red Bull, and Bottas was, people forget, he was pretty deep. In fact, when he was at Williams, he was being talked up as a really good driver, and people thinking he's going to be like a top talent. And then when he joined, he was like not too bad. And then 2020 seemed like the perfect, number two driver that could beat Lewis on his day. And then this year it's just plummeted down. So I think it's one of those things where just join a new team that really wants him and, rebuild his career from there, really.
Yeah, I mean, you speak about the mental state. Absolutely. Imagine anyone going to work in 2021 and thinking that your job's under threat and you might not have a drive or you might not be employed. It does affect you even if you're doing the most simple of tasks. So performing under the immense pressure and also having we don't know if we believe in you or not anymore must be really tough. And that's the reason why all drivers should or do have mental coaches and people to maintain this sort of solid positive mental attitude, because they need it in order to perform week in, week out. So yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good move for Bottas, as much as it is a down the ladder move. I think for his own, I feel like he's probably quite happy that he's won races, maybe wanted to win a one world championship, but it just didn't work out. Now it's time to, a new chapter, as he says. So we'll see. Hopefully Alfa Romeo will take steps forward, but we literally don't know. I mean, Alfa Romeo might be a podium, winning team. Who knows?
One thing I saw quite interesting, I think is on one of the videos from the race, they were talking about Bottas's 2021 performances meant that he essentially he's slipped down the pecking order a bit in terms of and also seats have been taken. You could argue that if he'd have left Mercedes in 2020, he could have been, the second Red Bull driver or stuff, because he's that solid number two. And it's a strange thing with Bottas that he's gone to Mercedes and then maybe back down, but he could have easily become a Red Bull driver or Ferrari, because he is that, especially in 2022, you saw he was, seen as that brilliantly solid second driver that would be consistent, pick up points, and if you've got a good car, help you win a constructors title.
You can't blame him for staying at Mercedes, though, can you? I mean,
no, not at all. That's what I mean. It's all hindsight.
The best job in the world, and then you go, let's go down the field a bit, because who knows? But yeah, as you say, it's all timing. Some of it you literally cannot even,
judge,
decide. So yeah, I wish Valtteri all the best, and hopefully we'll see maybe a slightly more lively. I hope so. Character. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? We interrupt this WTF1 podcast for a very quick chat about our sponsor for this episode, Manscaped. Manscaped have just launched their brand new 4th generation performance package. You can join the 2 million men worldwide using Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code WTF1. It's time to bundle up with the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies. Their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. It also gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. Plus, it's waterproof. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code WTF1 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code WTF1 at manscaped.com. Make your balls a priority this fall. Choose Manscaped, your balls will thank you. Should we talk about the person that did go to Williams, Mr. Alex Albon? Nice to see him back on the grid. We weren't the kindest about his performances when he was at Red Bull, but I think that was, reasonably deserved because
I'm afraid that is F1.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's a competitive sport, and if you're not performing, you are going to have to expect some criticism. But
absolutely. And I think that Albon, now that we've seen obviously Gasly previously and now Perez as well, it's kind of almost not really a mark of how good or bad he is, because everyone seems to struggle. And I am now very much of the opinion that there's something fundamentally wrong with how that Red Bull team is set up, or at least how they want to be set up is, okay, Max wins everything and whoever the second driver comes in, as long as they're somewhere near, that's good. But clearly there are struggles there. So I'm really interested to see how Alex does this time when he goes to Williams. It's great to see him back in the sport because he's such a lively, happy character. And I hope we see that Alex that we saw sort of at the start, where he was kind of happy-go-lucky, so amazingly chuffed to be in F1, not towards the end where he just wanted to kind of give up and get out of the paddock, to be honest. Let's ask a question. At Damien PSB, what do you think Albon and Latifi's performance will be in 2022? Because let's be honest, Williams' announcement is the most polarizing one. I think they'll probably struggle, personally, with Albon neither of them being particularly experienced going into a brand new regulation set. Who knows? I think that obviously Williams have been taking steps forward, a lot of that down to George. I don't know if Latifi was the right choice for Williams to continue on with, in my opinion, especially with how badly George smashed him throughout the entirety of them being teammates. So, yeah, bit of a weird one, because obviously Williams said that they didn't mind, didn't have to go with paid drivers, they're financially stable, but then carried on with Latifi.
Yeah. I'm glad they kept him, to be honest, in terms of just simply because we now get to see how good Albon is, and you get that, that judge, because essentially the most interesting thing about the driver moves, which we've all kind of alluded to a little bit before, is that in 2022, it's almost like a clean slate. It's a completely different car. You can't use the excuse of, this person's been in for a while. So it's tough. I think it's actually quite tough for Albon, because if he's on par with Latifi,
that's not good enough.
It's not nowhere near good enough, because George beat him every single weekend, other than the points or whatever. But let's be honest, lucky, and in terms of pace, George would always beat him, always in qualifying. So if Albon isn't, beating him at least 18-2 in qualifying, you're thinking, well, how far, how good is Albon, and how much is he actually realistically going to potentially rebuild his career and move up the grid again? So it's kind of, Albon, if Albon does absolutely annihilate Latifi, then
there you go.
He kind of has to. It's a difficult situation for him to be in, really. And I'm very surprised obviously it seemed there's been a lot of rumors now, and you go, okay, seems like this is going to happen. But when it was first announced, I was thinking Albon to Williams makes no sense. This whole driver market has been like the F1 game, where really random people are moving teams, because Formula One now, you're so used to De Vries is a Mercedes junior driver, so he has to go to Williams, and then George Russell goes up to here, and then Bottas is Mercedes, so he goes there, and Albon is Red Bull, so he goes into the AlphaTauri. And this year, that seems to have gone all out the window, and people just hire who they want, which personally I much prefer. I would much rather see that, because I find it quite annoying that when a seat's free, there's only an option of who your junior driver is or whatever. Yeah,
absolutely.
But it's exciting.
I mean, even now, obviously at Alpine, Esteban Ocon is staying there, yet he is still managed by Toto. So you could argue there's a conflict of interest there. And then we've got Guan Yu Zhou being rumoured to go to the other Alpha seat, who is an Alpine junior. And it's it makes, I honestly was thinking it makes sense for Nick De Vries to go to Williams, because he has that Mercedes link, and with the relationship that Mercedes and Williams are going to be having from 2022, sort of helping each other out with technical partnerships and stuff like that, seems like a solid move. Keep him in the Mercedes family. But they've instead gone with Albon. And although Red Bull confirmed that they've released him from his contract, they've still said they're going to be monitoring his progress. And looking at how Jos Capito was speaking about it, he was just kept being Alex Albon is a Williams driver. That is it. And repeated that several times, even though people were well, what if Sergio Perez isn't performing and they want to, promote Gasly up to Red Bull, and then there's a space, a spare seat at AlphaTauri going, what happens then? Can you take Albon back? And he was just Alex Albon is a Williams driver. And there's no real definitive he's rinsing his hands of Red Bull or anything like that. He even, like, in the promotional pictures for the Williams contract, he's got AlphaTauri merch on, which I was like, could you not have picked just the plain white t-shirt? Like, I don't know.
That to me suggests he might still have like a Red Bull helmet, and
because
it has happened. Sainz had it at Renault for at least 1 year. If you remember when Sainz moved to Renault, he did have the Red Bull logos on his helmet still for 1 year, and then eventually cut ties. So maybe it is. You're going to like me.
Renault
you're gonna like
providing
me for this.
Red Bull with their power units, then, so there was still some sort of tie.
Yeah, that was another thing that they could potentially end up being Williams Red Bull powertrains. But another thing maybe is, and this is a bit of a segue, but they can essentially have their fifth driver in Formula One, because I know a lot of people saying, Red Bull, you've got 4 seats.
Yeah,
and
come on.
You can't want Albon that much because you're not giving him one of your 4 seats.
The interview, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah,
with Christian Horner, where he was like, wasn't the question something about, are you going to let Albon go or something like that, or like something about the seats anyway? And it basically, reading between the lines, was, no, we don't want him in any of our seats, but we'll support him in anything else, sort of thing. So,
yeah, but maybe it is a case of seeing how like Tsunoda does next year or something, when he's got alongside Gasly in same cars with a bit more experience, and then maybe that's when they bring Albon back, or they say, no, we are definitely going to release you now. You do you, hun.
I'm sure that's exactly what Christian Horner said. Yeah. I can't get my head around the fact, though, that there isn't something in these drivers' contracts that allow them to go to what could technically be a rival team, like the Red Bull. Like Alex Albon is their development driver. He has helped shape what could be the constructor championship winning car this year, and yet he's able to like toddle off down the paddock to go and join Williams and their Mercedes powered car. To me, it seems strange.
It works both ways as well, because a lot of people saying Mercedes don't want Albon to go there because he could, get all these Mercedes secrets and then go back. Equally, Mercedes could be like, well, we've got the simulator driver who knows everything about Red Bull. Help us build a Red Bull, please, Albon.
Would they really want that?
What?
I mean, Albon's not really. I think Mercedes have more to lose than gain from having Albon involved, and that's probably why there was so much discussion about cutting the tyres. And I'm very surprised that the tyres haven't been cut, but I imagine there's probably something in there around Albon's not allowed to look at the engine or something. I don't know. Like you wonder what the clauses will be within his contract as to how much he'll actually know about that Williams car. It's a strange one, isn't it?
It seems so weird to me if they're going to genuinely have clauses in the contract that limit Albon to like properly get his hands dirty at that team. Because for me, obviously, I'm not a Formula One driver. Surprise!
What?
I know. Sorry to disappoint. But I, as a driver, I'd want to be able to like know everything, and like I said, I'd get my hands dirty and not constantly be like, "Oh, sorry, you can't come in this room. It's a top secret." Like it just doesn't seem like a relationship like that is ever going to work.
Maybe just sign an NDA or something. I don't know, but then I don't think those go very far either.
Hey, that didn't work very well. If somebody managed to take a picture of him having his Williams photo shoot that went viral on Twitter a few days beforehand.
Anyway, there you go. There's Albon to Williams. How about let's talk about in English. Yuki Tsunoda stays at AlphaTauri. Zero Kieran 3 asks, does Yuki Tsunoda deserve the AlphaTauri seat, or should they have got Albon back in that team instead of Williams, where it's unknown whether they will be competitive? In my opinion, from a competitive standpoint, they've missed a big trick by not putting Albon with Gasly because I just think that Albon will be much better than Tsunoda next year if they were both to be in that seat. So clearly there's more around it, probably to do with the Honda ties and things like that, as to why Tsunoda's staying for another year, because his performances have been underwhelming, to say the least, after such a positive start in Bahrain. I know he's a rookie, but at the same time, he's a great guy. We really like him, but his results haven't improved, really. Like he's If anything, he's got worse over the season. So I'm quite glad for him that Red Bull have obviously thought, oh, let's give him another year. I imagine there's more contractual things like that, i.e. the Honda deal, etc., as to why they're keeping him for another year. But it also allows him another year to grow, which, if he doesn't show a significant
not height. Yeah.
That wasn't meant to be like that.
He reached the pedals hopefully by the end of 2022.
Oh, Katie, you can't say
I'm
that.
a short ass too, so I feel like I can make that comment.
Yeah, true. I think if he doesn't show a significant improvement next year, that will be it. Because of course Honda are leaving as well, and he has to be consistently scoring points, only a few tenths off Gasly, and then you stay in Formula One. Anything worse than that, I think his days may be numbered at Red Bull / AlphaTauri.
Yeah, sorry, I was too busy looking at the chat.
That's fine, Katie.
On my orange pillows.
As soon as you had that 1 second of Tommy not coming in, you were like, "Oh no, this is my go, isn't it?"
I've messed up.
What's the chat saying? Let's mention actually that, of course, that Team WTF1 members are watching live right now. Welcome to everybody: Aki T, Aidan F, Izzy Hollingsworth, Sardi Fish, Eve H, to name a few. Anything of interest that you saw, Katie, or should we just dive into your thoughts about?
I just saw somebody commenting on the orange pillows that I have behind me.
Always obsessed with your cushions.
Always, and I'm actually.
Well, they can't really comment about anything that I've got.
Yeah, some nice
wow,
lights,
that white door,
LEDs.
that white radiator.
But yeah, I'll be honest, I was slightly surprised to see them re-sign Yuki. Like you say, there's probably dealings going on behind the scenes as to why he's been kept on, because, well, we've seen how ruthless the Red Bull are with their program and getting people out when they're not performing as well as expected. Maybe Dr. Helmut Marko's turned a new leaf and he's going to be really kind and keep Yuki there for
Never. If anything, the older he gets, probably the more grouchy he's going to get as well. So
true. But yeah, I thought that Albon and Gasly would be like a proper little power duo together. But yeah, I mean, let's be honest, I don't think Gasly's ever going to get promoted to that Red Bull seat. We've spoken about it on the podcast before that I don't know what Red Bull are doing, what kind of carrot they're dangling in front of Gasly and being like, we promise you're going to get a Red Bull seat if you just carry on. And every year he seems to fall for it and thinks, well, maybe I could get promoted. Or maybe he's just genuinely quite content with AlphaTauri. He has proven that he can win a race with them under quite exceptional circumstances, but he's still got a race win to his name that he'll take. But yeah, we'll wait and see. But I don't know, to be honest, where else Gasly could go, because at the moment, like there are so many people in Formula One that are struggling to find better seats. Like I'm of the opinion that Valtteri Bottas probably should have been aiming for a better seat than an Alfa Romeo, but obviously there's only so much available. And there is so much young talent, like little piranhas snapping, waiting for that opportunity to come up. And although it seems like half of the F2 paddock have been rumoured for this Alfa Romeo seat alongside Bottas and stuff, like looking at the future and the contracts that are being signed, because we're seeing people like Esteban Ocon now from till 2024, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, like Lando Norris, all these contracts that are being signed are like long-term contracts. And it does beg the question of like, how is this going to be for young people and young drivers coming up that are actually going to get F1 opportunities? Because at the moment, there is literally like almost everyone in Formula One deserves to be there and deserves to have like a long future in Formula One, in my opinion. So yeah, it's a case of I feel really bad for Callum Ilott, because I think if he doesn't get the Alfa Romeo seat, I'm afraid I don't think he's going to be in Formula One, which is a great shame because he's a mega talent as well. But there's lots of stories like that I think we're going to be seeing over the next few years of people that are doing a fantastic job in F2 and F3 that just don't get that step up to Formula One.
Yeah, it's strange because you're almost saying, you can almost see it like a bad thing, but then also at the same time, it shows how talented this grid is. It's crazy the amount of talent on the grid. I personally think it's one of the best in ages. Gasly's a strange one because I guess it looks good for Gasly to stay at AlphaTauri. For example, the last race, he was brilliant. out qualifying Perez, beating Perez, who's in there, rather than going back, risking getting trounced by Verstappen again. And then he's only going to be, when a seat does come up in a good team, he might go there. Excuse me. He might end up going there, and he is just waiting, isn't he, essentially, for that seat. And with Tsunoda, he's been given essentially a lifeline of, right, you've got this year to learn, and then you need to be exactly what you said, like closer to Gasly when we start in 2022, new cars, both drivers going in with a new car. So there's, again, no excuse of, oh, you've been in the team for ages. He's got a bit more, he's had a year of experience, and then go against. I mean, of course, I like Yuki, and I'm happy that he's doing another year, because it would be a shame for them to just fire him, because we've seen, I know it's a Haas, but we've seen how crash happy Mick and Mazepin have been as well. It does seem like all the rookies that have come up from F2 have been quite crash happy and struggling quite a lot. So giving him that other chance, I think it would just be a case of, let's see. And personally, would I think Albon would, I don't feel like Albon would do any, well, the thing is, Albon's an unknown, I guess. It's that's the thing with Albon. I'm like, would he be loads better?
Yes.
But then, not now, yes, I think so. But 2022, I don't know. We'll see. Because Albon's such an unknown, isn't he? But then, would he go back and be as amazing as Gasly is? It's hard to know. It's that second Red Bull seat, like you say, is almost like you can't gauge their talent. You could put anyone in it, and you have no idea if they're good or not.
Exactly.
It's very
The answer is put Lewis Hamilton in there.
Oh my God,
like
I was literally about
see.
to say that. Like, not even joking.
Yeah.
I was about to say, put Hamilton in a Red Bull. Let's see.
Oh, we're just so in sync.
Oh my God. Yes. So obviously it's good to see Yuki stay for a year. When you look at it on paper, he doesn't deserve, probably with everyone waiting in the wings, to carry on for another year, but it's nice to see that he can have that next year. And then if he doesn't improve, Tommy, I'm sorry, mate, but we're going to...
Who is waiting? Who do you think is actually waiting in the wings there? Because I can't really think of anyone.
I mean, in terms of like Albon, really was my main sort of thing. In terms of, I'm sure Albon probably wanted to go to AlphaTauri rather than Williams.
Have his chance to do what Gasly did.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, moving on to the last seat. Team WTF1 member Isaac AB asks, what is the most interesting outcome for the Alfa Romeo second seat? Who do you think deserves it? And who do you personally want to see get it? Those are going to be two different answers, I think. It's a difficult one, really. Of course, Bottas is going to be the number one driver there. Guan Yu Zhou, did you say? That's come out of nowhere.
That's honestly the favourite at the moment.
That's come out of nowhere, as you say. And Alpine Junior just being like, you know what, I fancy Alfa Romeo now. Absolutely fine. Of course, Callum Ilott wanted that seat as well, but I just don't think, as I've said before, he has enough financial backing in order to get him that seat. If he did, I think he may well be in with a good shot of getting into Formula One, but I just don't think he has that. Of course, he could still have a very successful career in IndyCar and doing other sort of motorsport series. So who knows? But who do I think deserves it?
I can't believe that final seat. If you'd have said there'd be a seat free, you just think, right, Ferrari Junior definitely, Schwartzman's getting it, or Mick moves up and then Schwartzman goes to Haas, or I can't believe we're discussing that, and it seems like it's going to be between a Mercedes Junior and an Alpine Junior. It is so bizarre.
Are we throwing Antonio straight into the bin now? Is that
yes? Because me and Katie actually were chatting about this earlier and had exactly the same theory that if Antonio was being announced,
it would have done
Italian Grand Prix, that is the only reason, in my opinion, why it's not been announced, is because it would be harsh to throw Antonio out in his home race and announce it at his home race. So next week, maybe. But yeah, I think too little, too late for Antonio. I mean, interesting outcome is a very different question, because obviously if we're talking interesting, you'd put someone absolutely ridiculous and silly in it for entertainment. But deserving it, De Vries. I would like to see De Vries in F1. I think he deserves to be in F1 personally, and I think he's better than Guan Yu Zhou.
We'll see. Better. I think, yeah, it'd be better, I think, to see De Vries. Obviously, he's won the Formula E World Championship. How much that will actually carry over to Formula One, I don't think very much. But clearly, he's got
F2
minerals,
champion there as well.
To say. You know, he's F2 champion in probably one of the less slightly underwhelming seasons compared to others, because obviously everyone had sort of been promoted then. The Leclercs, the Russells, the Norrises had all gone. So obviously, yeah, is an F2 champion, won Formula E World Championship as well. So you have to say, credential-wise, probably deserves it much more than Guan Yu Zhou does. But yeah, it's difficult. I think either of them could be good, but Zhou wasn't particularly great against Callum Ilott on F2. So yeah, I think Nick De Vries would be, in terms of competitiveness, a bit better.
And then you get another situation where you have to sort out the contracts with Toto because he's in a Ferrari team. And what a bizarre, silly season this is. I think De Vries. I would like De Vries.
In an ideal world, I would like to see Schumacher promoted from Haas to Alfa Romeo. That's the dream, but I don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, De Vries seems like a solid shout. He's a nice guy. He's won some championships. And yeah, I would like to see him get a shot at Formula One. But yeah, really, I like you said, I think Giovinazzi is a little too late with, you know, his amazing qualifying performance in Zandvoort, but like we joke about every week on the podcast with the ABCDEF1. Yeah, he
anonymous until
he
that
really
quality
is.
Performance.
Exactly. And you can't sign a driver when the market is this competitive just because, they did a great job in Zandvoort. They got P7. Like, it's just, it's not going to be, you know, you can't go to a contract talk with that one thing. I did this, you know, it's not going to work. So, yeah, I think chuck some new talent in there, freshen up the grid a little bit.
Do you guys not, I've kind of only just really thought about this, but if you were Mick Schumacher, and you know your career progression they've been speaking about him, you know, you will be at Ferrari one day, and people think maybe, you know, Alpha's the next step. Do you not think you'd be a bit miffed as Mick Schumacher to feel like that seat? I guess there's no guarantee it's going to be better next year than a Haas, but his relationship with Mazepin is clearly broken down massively, and he doesn't really want to be driving with him as a teammate anymore. And if I was Mick Schumacher as a Ferrari junior driver and Giovinazzi's seat is essentially being replaced, I feel like I'd be a bit miffed if they're like, here, Mercedes junior, Nick De Vries is getting it. You'd be like, like, Ferrari, what are you doing? If you're wanting to get me up the ladder, why isn't that my seat?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think, in terms of heart, obviously, I'd love to see Mick Schumacher up there. Has he done enough to warrant a promotion this season? It hurts me to probably say no, because you know, he has crashed a lot. He's crashed probably on par with Mazepin now, really, if you actually tossed it all up. So I don't think his performances are particularly going to affect him being in Formula One or not. Yeah, it is a weird one. It's a really weird one. There must be some reason as to why they wouldn't promote Mick and bring in a Mercedes Junior, as you say, Tommy. It's a very weird situation to be looking at. But maybe it's just because Mick they don't see him as ready. I don't know. It's very difficult.
If I'd have read no rumours or anything of, you know, everyone saying it's probably going to be De Vries or Joe, if this had been announced that Giovinazzi's leaving, I think 99% of people would say that's Mick's seat, and then Schwartzman goes to Haas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so so strange that that's not the case. But
begins to beg the question whether it's actually worth like these junior programs, because this silly season has just proven that you could be an Alpine junior, you could be a Mercedes, well, apart from George, I guess, being a Mercedes junior and actually going to Mercedes. It's happened, guys. After binning off Verline and Ocon, a Mercedes junior has actually made it to the top team. But yeah, in terms of like actual loyalties of being a junior for a team and then going somewhere completely different, this has been certainly a very silly season in that sense.
Yeah, it's been absolutely mystifying. That last Alfa Romeo one, I think, it baffled all of us really a little bit. So we'll see next week. As you say, Tommy, very good point about the Italian Grand Prix. It does seem like Antonio is very much directly in the recycling. Maybe, I don't know where he'll go. Who knows? But that's pretty much it, I think, for the crazy driver season that we've got going on in terms of changes.
Just checking Twitter. Just checking Twitter to make sure they're not announced.
That's literally just what I've just done.
I saw the face. I was like, Katie, have you got any final thoughts?
Yeah. Doing reaction. No. It's just people speculating. I've just seen somebody suggest that Nico Hülkenberg could go to Alfa Romeo. So I honestly, I can't keep up.
Any spare seat, people just go Hülkenberg.
Yeah.
And the real question is, as Vilnick asks, who will get Michael Massey's seat?
Katie, that's why she
it's gonna happen.
Maybe in 20 years, Seb and I
maybe.
will be there.
Yeah?
No, I'm joking.
Okay,
I don't think so.
Fair. I'll wait to see that. Amazing. Katie, final thoughts, please.
My final thoughts are, I hope that your arm is okay after holding the mic the whole time.
I've been exchanging it every a few minutes. I've had my mic running out of battery as well. It's been a really smooth sailing podcast.
I think I'm looking forward to seeing how your background develops as well on this.
I mean, it has to develop somehow. It can't just stay like that. But
I think
there's a
just
lot
a
to do
Frank
in this
Shrine,
house
maybe something in the back like that.
Well, I've got enough Schumacher pictures that there will be stuff going.
Oh, okay, that's
for
good.
My Schumi Shrine, but And Tommy, final thoughts for you, please.
With all the chaos of our road trip, I'd almost forgotten that it's sprint quali. So we're watching quali tomorrow, and then 2 races.
Good point. We are watching qualifying tomorrow, Friday. We're also watching live our first ever race together, sprint quali.
Yeah, watch alongs for both.
Qualifying and then sprint qualifying, and then internet special reactions on Sunday, podcast on Monday, all the content you could ever dream of.
We've had a busy week.
Yeah, it's been sorry if the energy's been slightly lower than usual, guys. If I hadn't had to hold my microphone, maybe I would have been able to flap my arms around a bit more. But it's been a long old week, but hopefully you enjoyed this driver changes video. We will be back, as I say, for all that content coming soon. Stay tuned to our socials as to when we'll go live. And hashtag WTF1 podcast if you have anything else that you want to say in the meantime. Katie, Tommy, thank you so much, as always, for being my wonderful, lovely guests. And I'm sorry if I've been echoey this entire time. We'll see you very soon for another WTF1 podcast on Monday. Bye! Frank, yawn if Guan Yu Zhou's going to Alfa Romeo.
Oh, yeah.
What about yawn if Nick De Vries is going?
Yawn if Nico Hülkenberg's going. Nico Hülkenberg confirmed to Alfa Romeo.
Every time.